Hi everybody, welcome to Stashblaster Quilts. My name is Maria and I'm here to help you make more quilts in less time with less stress. I don't know if I'm going to have to change that, that intro line because there's been a lot of questions about making quilts lately. But anyway, welcome. I'm happy to have you here. Sadly, I did miss the rocket launch to the moon. I have been just buried under so much stuff here that I needed the time to get set up so that I could actually sew with you today. So I missed it. I'll watch it on video later. It'll be fine. But anyway, I do love a good space race, and I'm glad that we're not competing against anybody on it right now, because I'm not sure if we'd win or not. So, yay us. Anyway, let me think. I told you about the trip to England. I am going to be working on my son's wedding quilt today with you. I do not have everything cut out. I want to sew what I have and then see where the holes are in terms of the shading. Do I need more light blue or dark blue? Do I need more of this or more of that in terms of within each color category? So that's something where I'll still be at least 98% done building the houses and the roofs separately, and then I can start putting stuff together. So my hope is, now that I've cleaned off my design wall, except for this little piece that I didn't know was going to be on camera today, because it's been a crazy day, I'm hoping that the rest of my design wall will have the pattern on it when we meet again in 2 weeks, even if it only roughly so. Because what I want to start doing is cutting it apart and starting to actually assemble the sections of the quilt. And that's going to be a little bit more intensive than like doing the roofs that I'm going to be doing today. So that ought to be more interesting to watch me fail on. As we know, this channel is not a guarantee that it's going to work out perfectly every time, because it never does. So you get to see my mistakes as well as the things that go well. But all in all, I'm very pleased with the progress that I've made. Excuse me. I have been undergoing some medical things, all kinds of testing. So that is slowing process down, but I should be doing better soon and be done with all of this testing, and then hopefully they can deal with some of my problems. I am still having trouble with my thumb, so I'm not doing any embroidery or handwork at this point, but that's okay. It's a little bit better overall, and I'm trying very hard not to overstress it. But anyway, so like I said, today it's going to be this quilt. I did take down, here, I'll show you here. One wide. Okay. So I did take down all of these 3 panels of my design wall. But you see up here, that's something I'm debating what I'm going to do with. So let me get it for you. Hold on. I meant to bring this down earlier, but didn't, because, life. Okay. So years and years ago, I was into making ornaments and giving them as Christmas or Hanukkah gifts to everyone. And so I started sewing a whole bunch of them. So there's these trees, I have a whole bunch made. And these skaters, hold on, the skaters, I have quite a few made. I have 8 done. But there were 4 different designs, and my plan had originally been to do all 4 a different color for each one, and then make them into ornaments to give to people. So these are the patterns. And so it does say Noel on the top 2, but the other 2 don't say anything. They're just winter scenes. And so I was debating, since I've already done the work, and they're so small that they're not really going to go well into a quilt unless I just keep repeating them over and over and over again, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But I have a varying number of them. So I have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14 of the deer. No, I have more than that. 6, 9, 12, 15, 18. I have 21 of the deer. And I have 8 of the skaters. So I'm debating, I don't know what's blowing up on my phone. I apologize for that. Apparently we went into space and we went to the moon today. Hold on one second. And it's April Fool's Day, but this is not an April Fool's joke. So let me silence everything on my phone. I had silenced the ringer. I would not expected so many texts. Anyway, so my question is going to be, do I make at least 8 of each of the other 2 designs so that I can make 8 sets of ornaments? Or do I put them into a quilt and space them out and then just make however many of each one that I need for that design? There's not enough of what I have here without making more. So I could, something that I considered, was make ornaments out of what I have already sewn and then put them in our quilt boutique. We do the 2 guilds that I'm part of, the 2 chapters I'm part of in the Quilters Unlimited Guild, have like boutique-y things so that they use those as fundraisers. So instead of giving a set, I could just cut up what I have and just do them as individual ornaments. So that's another option. So I haven't decided what I want to do with this. If you would like to put in the chat your opinion, that's great. If you want to shoot me an email, that's great. But I'd love to know what you think I should do, because like I said, I have 21 deer already done. And I think they look pretty good in the green here. But there's the skeeters. I have 8. And I just can't decide. I just can't decide. So I left that out so I could think about it some more. But like I said, I'm putting it up here. You're welcome to give me your opinion. I did leave lots of room around each one because I wasn't sure how much negative space I wanted before it got to a binding or something else. Depending on how I stuff this, I may actually put in a lining as well to hold the batting. But I was just going to basically put a simple binding around the outer edges and call it an ornament. It'll have to have the triangular hanger string on the top because these are not on point, but I think they're pretty stinking cute. And they didn't take that long to make. So I'm thinking that if I do decide to make more, this might be a good project to start getting my hand back into shape, just doing like 1 a night, because it takes very little time and the holes are already pre-made, so it's easier to put the needle through than if you're going through fabric. So that's why I'm not sure what I want to do with this. So you are welcome to give me your opinions. If you don't know, if this is your first time here, you can email me at mail, M-A-I-L, at stashblasterquilts.com. Hold on, let me see what we have here. Judy. Boutique items, they would be nice bookmarks or ornaments. Okay. Yeah, as bookmarks, I think they'd be a little short. But yeah. All right. I'll definitely consider it for boutique items. In which case I don't have to make any more. I just have to put the lining fabric on and then put on a batting and call it good enough. And then the hanging ribbon. So that certainly makes it easy. So that's what I was thinking. So that's one project. I have taken down all the stuff you saw over here before. It's all on top of a dresser in my hallway out here right now. Because I wanted to get this wall cleared so that pattern can go up. What I'm thinking is, once I know where each house is going to go, then what I'll be able to do is cut out the sections and then basically paper piece the green of the lawns onto those wedges, those chunks, and then I'll be able to sew in the roads. So that's what I'm thinking is how I'm going to do it. Sorry, I got a message pop up. So that's why I want to get this up and going, because at the top is going to be April? No, August. August. All right, now my brain is frying. I'm sorry. With February at the bottom, it would be the 7th month is July. So July and June, July, and August should be at the top of the quilt, which happily are our hottest months. So that's going to be the yellows, oranges, and pinks. And then towards the bottom, it's going to get through the blues and the greens and the browns and the grays. So color theory-wise, that should work. And then once I get the chunks done, you know, the triangles or whatever the houses are on, then I will embroider on the rings or whatever it is that's going to be on the doors and the other critters and that kind of stuff. Because I don't want to wait till the whole top is done, because it'll be unwieldy. But trying to do something just on the house, since the house is only, well, it's only this big, trying to stitch without anything to really hold on down here is going to be a little bit more difficult. I might do some, but I have a feeling that it'd be easier if it was in a, 6x10, and then maybe I could put a hoop over it versus I would have to do free-handed hoopless embroidery, and I'm not sure I'm ready for that. Plus, some of the embroidery is going to be between houses, or if this is your first time, my son is into Pokemon. This quilt is a temperature quilt from the day of the wedding until their first anniversary. And so since he and his wife are into Pokemon, I'm going to have some, with their heads poking around corners or on roofs or things like that, which can't happen until the grass around the houses is sewn on, because they'll be sewn onto that grass. So, like I said, some of this can be done, some of it can't be until different stages. So I'm just going to play it cool at this point and figure out what I can make happen when. What I'm hoping is things like birthdays and anniversaries, since I'm sewing around the houses, that's how I'm going to quilt it. Someone later could carefully go ahead and add more wedding rings on anniversary dates, or more birthday hats or birthday cake or something later they could stitch on, and have this quilt be kind of a living document of family. So that's kind of the thinking, but as of right now, this is what it is. So as I get those chunks, then you'll be able to watch the quilt actually being assembled in a much more interesting way than how it has gone so far. Right now, I've been sewing a lot of house bodies and a lot of roofs. But I'm very excited to say, here, let me show you here, camera 3. This box holds all the pieces left. These are already done, they just need to be trimmed. This stack does have up to 10 houses on each card. Hold on, let me move this. Okay. But this is all I have left to sew. Now, it's still going to take a good chunk of time, but that's it. For 364 houses, I'm down to just these. So I'm very happy about that. On the roofs, I have several cards of roofs. There's probably 200 of them, but these things go really fast, which is why I saved them for times like this. But since they go so quickly and easily, and I'm using the green thread because there's a green square on each corner, so it folds back to be a triangle, I don't have to change my threads all the time while I'm talking to you folks. So that's why I'm doing roofs today. Plus, it has been a crazy week. I know, I say that all the time, don't I? Um, I did an 8.5 hour day yesterday at a client's house where I sat for maybe 20 minutes during lunchtime, and I was feeling it before I even got home. And so today has been particularly bad. But that's okay. I am looking forward to some time where I'm not in the field doing the heavy lifting. That's kind of on my plans. And I do have a lot more traveling coming. I don't remember, Judy, you would know. Did I tell what happened in terms of how well the cargo skirt idea worked on my travels? If I did or didn't, let me know in the chat. If I didn't, then I'll talk about it here. And if I did, then I won't bother you with it again. But anyway, so yes, so today it's going to be roofs. So I'm going to move this camera, and hopefully I can angle it to get you a good view of the needle. I know some of you just enjoy watching the needle go up and down, basically. Okay, here we go. All right, now I'm going to see what it looks like. But I wanted to do the major move. Oh, look at that. That's pretty good. I wanted to get the major moves done before let me talk in English. I wanted to move it before I switched to it because I didn't want to make everybody seasick. I know that I have a problem with that sometimes, and so I'm trying to avoid that for all of you. So anyway, there's only one on there. All right, that's fine. All right. So I have a card here. This has all my corners, and then in each color family, I have a card that is the actual roof, and so I'm going to sew the squares on the opposing sides to make a trapezoid shape out of my color part of the roof. But the green is the background color for the entire quilt. So in between every house, there's likely to be at least a triangular wedge of green to help it go around the corners, because I'm going to be putting all my houses on curved roads, not city grid street type look. So we'll see. But anywho, all right. So let me switch back to camera 3 so that you can watch as I sew. I do not have a leader or ender on this. I would normally when quilt sewing, but because I don't have anything that the green would go particularly good with, my leader and ender quilt is using white as one of the major colors. So as long as I'm sewing in white, it works great. I also have some black, but green isn't going to cut it with either one. So I am just going to go ahead and start it the old-fashioned way. I could just take a scrap of fabric. It's how my mom... I'm going to do it the way my mom taught me, for what little it's worth. You can just put any 2 pieces of fabric through and then toss them later, but I hate to do that, so I'm going to just do it this way. So let me put this on here. Now, I have found in this instance, it is easier to sew from the middle part. Let's see. So sew from the middle of the strip to the corner, because if you sew from this way, sometimes this corner will get sucked into your machine. This way it doesn't. So I'm going to straighten this up. All right, I'm going to hold my threads. I'm going to put my needle down. I'm going to put this right up to the needle. I'm going to hold my threads down and then start stitching. And once I have a couple of stitches in, I can go. Now, I'm going to crank my speed a little bit. My son made a tablecloth. So he came over here and made a tablecloth because he wanted one that was for a table 5 feet square. And that's hard to find. So he went ahead and I gave him fabric. He sewed it all up. But he's not a confident sewer. So I dropped the speed on the machine. All right. So I'm just going to chain these, plain and simple. Okay, I haven't heard from Judy yet. All right. Overall, I was so glad that I went to Manchester. It was a very nice city. The only problem was it was raining all the time. I felt I was in the equivalent of Portsmouth, Portland and their reputation, or Seattle, for the amount of rain that they get. Because you expect there to be rain in England, but when I was in London 2 years ago, it would rain occasionally, but it was pretty much sunny most of the time. So just that couple hours drive north apparently makes a huge difference there. So it was good to experience. The people were wonderful. There were bees everywhere on their signage. Apparently that's their city mascot kind of a thing. So even the poles where you park would have a golden bee halfway down, which was kind of cute. So I have gotten my certificate in virtual professional organizing, which is new for me. So that's going to be interesting. I had Judy, the person on here. She won the drawing at my guild. I told everybody I needed a guinea pig to be somebody for me to practice on, and several people put their names in. And so since I knew everybody, I didn't want to have to worry about somebody feeling like there was favoritism. So my office manager, Denise, who doesn't know any of my quilting friends, collected all the names. Everybody emailed them if they were interested, and Judy won. So she did this process with me. Some of it was kind of weird, and some of it made a lot of sense. So we did all kinds of stuff, which was very cool. So that's something I'm going to be offering now, but that means we're starting to figure out how we're going to do the pricing and the scheduling and what kind of groups I want to offer and all of that. So it's going to be an interesting thing for a little bit, getting this all figured out and up and running. On top of everything else that I'm doing, of course, because why would I ever subtract anything if I can continue to add, right? If you knew me, you'd understand that's actually a pretty common thing for me to do. I have also volunteered to be the Springfield Guild's president next year, because again, how could I possibly not add more things to my schedule and things to do? So I still have to learn what's going to be involved with that, but that's going to be interesting. I have never been the president of a guild before. I've been the president of other boards, but apparently I not only manage the meetings for this guild, but I also attend for this chapter, but I also have to attend meetings for all the presidents of all the chapters, called Big QU. And I have no idea what that's going to be like. I have a feeling there's going to be a lot more politics to it than I would like. But that's kind of how life goes. Okay, so here's something. Here's a directional print. So I could put the roof in any direction. So do I want the leaves hanging down with the triangles? Hold on, let me see if I can. Do I want the triangles like this, so that this leaf looks kind of like icicles maybe falling down? Or do I want to put them like this so it's more like leaves? And I'm thinking I may want them hanging down. So that makes a difference, because when I'm looking at this, I have to know which way I want that angle so I can put it on the proper side. And it can make all the difference in how something looks in the final product. So when you're doing something like this, make sure you're always double checking, is it a directional print? And then just make an actual decision. Don't just go willy-nilly unless the pattern is in every direction. Oh, actually, those sparkles show up. Okay, so this is a new nail polish. Sorry, I'm digressing here. I almost always have sparkles, but this is what they're calling cat's eye, and it changes how deep the color is depending on the angle. So that's kind of fun. But I'm surprised the sparkles show up, because sometimes they don't, even when they're more noticeable in real life. Ah, the excitement of being me. Anyway. All right, I'm a little silly. I am tired. Anyway. Excuse me. Where was I? I forgot. All right. Oh, the virtual. So anyway, so Judy plowed through 8 weeks of me doing a once or twice a week 4 weeks of doing a twice a week practicum, and I think overall it went well. I passed my test with flying colors, and so that was just before I left for England. It was actually the day I had to pack because I was so far behind. So I packed the day before the flight. I am so happy that I got there and back before these 4-hour lines got started. It was bad enough getting in through customs, because it was a fairly long wait, but it was customs and border patrol, and the TSA wasn't getting paid. I don't know if CBP was. And so it was a longer wait than it had been 2 years ago, but it wasn't nearly like it could have been. I'm so thankful that I'm not going out of the country until September. I'll be going to Toronto. But other than that, all my flights and all my more, my drivable conventions are in the US, so that's cool. I was going to drive to Canada and sell my books and stuff there, but they told us that my books would get hit with the tariff both directions. So taking it into Canada, I'd have to pay a tariff on every book, and then anything that didn't sell that I brought back, I'd have to pay a tariff on, as would anybody from the US who attended the conference. And I said no. So what I decided to do is that I'm sorry, I keep bumping that camera. I'm going to just take some samples and do it that way. I don't want to make people have to pay all that much extra money. Because it adds up. It adds up quick. And especially with paying for fuel as well on that drive. I would just as soon save that money. I mean, I'm going to be paying for jet fuel instead, but driving from here to Canada would have taken me a couple of days, minimum, even so. And so I really didn't want to have the hotels and all the gas and all of that, and then have to pay all those fees. So, but since it's in September, hopefully I'm not going to have those problems. I might, but I hope not. All right. Okay. Excuse me. My nose is all cloggy. I think my talking is just making it clog up worse. Like I'm bringing more air past it, and so it's determined to dry out. Let me get her a drink too. I am still enjoying this project. It kind of surprises me. I figured by this point I would be so sick and tired of making houses that the last 100 would be torture. And it has not been that way. Now, granted, I'm not doing it all day, every day, for, week after week after week. But I have spent some good chunks of time on this. So, I am glad that it's still interesting. And I'm enjoying watching them, roll off and be done. I think the most fun is going to be pairing the houses with their roofs based on the temperatures. Because then it'll be a little bit more real. You know what I mean? And we'll see kind of how it goes at that point. But I need more greens. Okay, there we go. Actually, since this is camera 3, can somebody give me a thumbs up or something to let me know you can hear me? I just realized that I haven't seen anything since I've switched over to camera 3. Okay, I'm going to switch back. I'm switching back here because I realized I've asked some questions and I haven't seen any replies. I just want to make sure you could hear me when I was on the other camera, because you couldn't see that I was talking. So if you could let me know, I would appreciate that. But you've watched me sew several of these now, so I suppose that that if I stay here in camera 1, it's not a big deal. I can hear you. It's a great shot of the needle. Oh, okay. Then I will switch back. I thought it was kind of fun myself. All right. Thanks, Judy. Yeah, it's kind of hard to know because we have had the trouble with this other camera, and being able to be heard. And there's so few of you who watch this live versus those of you who watch it later that I never quite know what to expect in terms of how many people are actually watching at the moment. Because according to this, yep, there's only 2 people on right now, but 4 people have come and gone. So, there's no way to know. Anyway, all right. Let me come back to this other view for myself. All right. All right. Now with something like this, part of my problem is I'm going to lose 1/4 of an inch in the seam allowance. So all we're going to see is this little ball and this little stick and probably the tip of this little stick. So having it hang down from the top, I think I'm going to have it pop up from the bottom. Kind of like there's a frisbee in the gutter. It's kind of the way I'm looking at it. Not all of the decisions have to be perfect. And you know what? If I put any upside down, it's not that big a deal. Nobody's going to really have a conniption fit if they think I should have put the roof on the other direction. And if they do, I'm not going to worry about it because It's my quilt. I can do what I want. So I had somebody come up to me, a couple of weeks ago, who is also a quilter, and she's seen this channel, and so she was saying to me, her sister was giving her a hard time because the sister said she wasn't doing it right when it came to quilting. She wasn't using the right techniques, or the way she was putting something together, or the colors she picked or something was wrong. Not that it could have been better, but it was wrong. And this particular lady was getting very upset as she was telling me about this. And I do have to say, if you like it, that's all that matters. Even if the person you made it for and you gave it to doesn't like it, it's still okay. As long as you do, that's all that matters. That's what feeds your creative spirit, is getting out there and doing what feels right to you. And if other people don't approve, that's their problem. You can just let it go, and which I know sounds like I think it's easier than it is, but you have to acknowledge that this is your project and only you can determine how it comes out and how it's supposed to look and what fabrics you like. This particular lady was apparently against everything about this quilt. The colors that were picked, the scale of the prints, the piecing style, the quilting style, the whole 9 yards. And I said, well, there is no quilting police. She does not have a badge. She does not have a say. And if she doesn't like what you're making, that's her problem. I said, you don't have to share it with her either. You don't have to tell her what you're working on. You don't have to show it to her. And if she offers you an unsolicited opinion, you can say, well, thanks for your opinion, and leave it at that. You don't have to say, I'm not going to listen to it, but you can just say, well, thanks for your opinion, and move on. I have had people do that to me. I had one lady, I was teaching a class, actually, and a quilting class, and I was teaching how to use gridded fusible web for making the Order and Chaos quilt. Because I said I pieced it the old-fashioned way, put 2 pieces together, then put 2 pieces together, then put those pairs together, and I pieced all of them like that. And I said, you can do it that way. There's nothing wrong with that, but this gridded stuff is so much better. And she was like, well, it's not real quilting if you cheat and use the grid stuff. And I'm like, well, then don't use the grid stuff. That's fine. But when she had, maybe a square, this about this big of a square done, because they were 1-inch squares, at the end of an hour, and other people had most of their quilt top pieced, she started singing a little bit different of a tune. But I said, you can put it together however you want. This is your quilt. You can piece it 2 by 2. I don't have a problem with that. That's how I did it. But I'm just saying you don't have to. But she got all up in my grill about that no, that's not right. That's not how a real quilter quilts, because now there's this fusible stuck in my quilt. That's true. It does make the quilt slightly heavier. But it also gets it done a few months earlier, so what's your choice, But if you're making something like a bag, you want that fusible in there, because the weight inside the bag is going to pull those squares apart. So that fusible will help that bag stay together even when the weight's pulling down on those seams. So you really want a fusible in there anyway, or an interfacing of some sort. Why not put in one that's going to make the job easier too? Oh, I thought this was adorable. So I fussy cut this one a little bit. It didn't quite go the way it should have, but I just thought that cat on the top, on what's going to look like a widow's walk, is really cute. So I want to make very sure that I get this oriented right. So when it comes to your quilting, there's no right way. There's some famous quilters who, I forget what her name is. There's one in particular. She takes old clothing. Okay, so she uses found fabrics, so old shirts and that kind of stuff, and she tears them into strips, and she puts them in a bag, and she just pulls out a strip, and then she sews that to the strip she's already sewn. That's it. She doesn't pay any attention to the colors or anything else. She just sews what happens to come out of the bag. And there's people who love her work. Me personally, I like a little bit more control in mine, but I would never tell her she was doing it wrong. So there is nothing wrong with however you want to do it. Alright, I am almost to the end of this card, which is good because I'm also almost out of my bobbin thread. So hopefully I can get these last ones in and then change it up. So this is all my black roofs. Black and gray is for anything under 30 degrees. If it was colder, sorry, not anything under, from anything in the 30s. In the 30s? Yes. Yes. If it's 29 or below, it's white. Because I started thinking, oh, that looks a little bit more like snow. Even though the grass is going to be green, I know. But having the white roof will be fun. Yeah, that way. Now, I will say, if one of your goals is to reduce your stress, then you're not going to want to pick something that's got a million tiny little pieces that are intricately combined. Now, I do stuff with millions of little pieces. I do. But I pick designs that are easy to do and quick to do, and blocks that are quick to do, so that it doesn't hurt me to get it done. All right. So, for instance, I have decided that I no longer want to cut my 1 and 1.5 inch, my 1 and 1.5 inch blocks, because I have drawers of them over there. There's so many of them. I have enough to make a couple of quilts just with 1 inch blocks. Big quilts. But I don't want to waste the fabric either. So I am going to be doing something a little weird with mine that I'm going to show you guys later. But I'm putting them in bins based on, they're either 1 or 1.5 inches wide, and they're either under 3 inches or over 3 inches. That's the only designation for which bucket it goes into. And then I have a project in mind for those. And they're going to be all different colors and things. Now, right now, there's a ton of specific colors in there. Because they're from the 2 skirts that I just made. So there's lots and lots of little pieces in there. I did hack a couple inches off the bottom of the mock-up skirt. And so there's anywhere from 1/2 inch to 2 inches wide pieces. All right, that is the last of the black roofs. So I've done half of them. So I'm going to snip off all but the last. And then drag it all up here. Okay. I am going to snip off this long tail because it could get caught up in the other side when I go to sew it. Now, because this seam runs this way, I'm going to want this one to run this way. And because these are still chained together, if I start at the end where I just finished, they will just easily follow each other. Hold on. See, now I'm talking to myself. And do I have that right? Nope. Nope. I still want to start at this other end. Okay. So I'll sew from this one to this one, and then this one to this one. And so these are going to bind up a little bit, but that's fine. But I'm not going to have loose pieces on the floor, which is a problem I tend to have. I'm not having at the moment, so we're going to call it good graces. I'm sorry for bumping that again. This is only like an inch over my sewing machine and maybe 2 inches from the deck itself, which is why I keep banging into it. Anytime I want to do something on this side, it's just right where my hand needs to go. Okay, so again, I want a V shape here, even though the V is going to go off the top. By leaving that last one under the presser foot, I don't have to worry about holding the threads because that piece is holding them for me. And I don't waste as much fabric, which is nice. Okay, there it is. Some of these lines are very hard to see, so sometimes I had a much lighter hand than others. I could have actually done this instead of in pencil, in pen. It's just a habit of mine to do it in pencil because I do a lot of white squares. And pencil's bad enough to see through. But this green is hardy enough. I could have just used a ballpoint Bic pen kind of a thing. But I don't have to, which was nice. So what I'm going to do when I'm done sewing these is I'm going to take this whole strip downstairs and I will put it, take it to my ironing board, which is in front of the television where my husband and I watch TV. And so I will cut them apart and then press them by folding this flat part up. And that will give me my trapezoidal rooftop. Okay, so this piece got cut a little bit short. So you can see a little bit of the black on this side. But when I stitch it down and then I flip it over, it'll be fine because that missing part is going to be in the seam allowance anyway. Oh, I forgot to mention. So, one thing to keep in mind with a design like this, if you're doing your own designing, is that I have to keep in mind on the quilting how much that design is going to shrink. I'm not sure exactly how much because with all the curves and things and the embroideries and everything else going on, not really positive. However, what I'm going to be able to do is, I know it'll be a minimum of 2 inches. So let's say the bed was 60 inches wide, which is only 5 feet, which is not the right answer. Okay, but let's imagine. I'm going to make my pattern 2 inches larger, both across and top to bottom. It's probably going to be closer to 4, but at that point, if I add some extra green as an extra framed border around, I can add some embroideries going out past where the houses are, and it'll be fine. But what I don't want is big, chunky sashing basically put on to make it the right final size. I hope that makes sense. So when I do the pattern, I know I've got to add that 2 inches to my width and my height, and I may still need to add on later, but I'm fine with that. So keep that in mind whenever you're creating your own designs. The more densely you're going to quilt, the more that quilt is going to shrink in. And since I wanted to cover as much of the top of the bed as possible, I need to add to my pattern size. What I'm going to do is I'm going to quilt the entire center, square it up, and then see what I need to add on additional borders, additional green around the edges, and the actual final borders that are going to be on. Because I want this quilt to have a drop on the sides and on the top of about a foot. I don't want to have to worry about, I scrunched up the middle of this and now the border doesn't fit, because I'm not quilting the border as densely. So that's going to be added on after. So I hope that makes sense to everybody. Yes, that means that my backing is also going to be added on later. So there will be a seam around the back side as well, but I'm fine with that. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. If any of this doesn't make sense, like I said, go ahead and email me at mail, M-A-I-L, at mail at stashblasterquilts.com. And I'll be happy to explain it a little bit better in 2 weeks. Or I can at least try to explain it better in 2 weeks. Or if you have a question that's not related, then I will answer that as well. I don't care if what you email me about is about organizing your house or your quilting or techniques or products or anything else. I am happy to answer, to the best of my ability, any questions that you have. I never claimed to know everything about everything, but I have a nice wide group of people I can ask questions to if I don't know the answer, or I can give you my opinion for exactly how much you're paying for it here on YouTube. At least I know that my opinion has some value. Exactly what you paid, which is nothing, but that's fine. Anywho, all right, so I'm going to sew for these last few minutes. If this is your first time here, congratulations on making it through. Not everybody does, but I hope that you will, that you have enjoyed this, and there's going to be a lot more of this as the pattern gets more and more complete. You'll be able to see it on the wall behind me. That's one of my favorite things about doing this on here, is you guys have gotten to see the quilts grow. The first one, if you haven't been on here for long, the Under the Sea quilt, that was a hand-pieced hexagon quilt, and it people told me they really did love seeing what I did visit to visit on the wall, because you could just watch it. You know, it grew like across, and then it grew in little chunks, and then all those chunks got bigger, and it started with the original hexies. So that might be a fun one if you just want to kind of speed through it and see all the pictures as it goes. So I enjoy that. I enjoy having you guys being able to see and comment on the quilts as they're taking place. I was doing that with the grandmother's flower garden I was working on, but when my hands started getting to the point where they were claws more than hands and hurt like the dickens all the time, I was like, I can't keep doing that. I have to give them time to heal, and they have taken forever to get better. So I keep having setbacks, and so I'm hoping that at some point they just give up and decide to be better and stop causing me this grief. But, you know, hands are kind of like kids. Sometimes they do what they're supposed to, and sometimes they don't. But anyway, if this is your first time here, again, congratulations. We get together for sewing at Gab the first and third Wednesday of every month. Even when I'm out of town, I try to do it. I have not been having much success lately, but Jonathan has hopefully got my laptop set up so that I will be able to do those. I think there's only 1 or 2 this year that I'm out of town for. You know, if you come to the thing and I'm not here, then it's because I couldn't get on. I've shown up dripping wet sometimes from a shower. I do try to make sure that I'm here when I say I'm going to be here. Um, it's only technical problems that make it where I'm not on at all. So I also will try to warn you when I'll be out of town to make it a little bit easier for you to know. But all in all, we're here. And I'd love it for you to be here. Enter into the chat, make comments, do whatever makes you happy here. Obviously keeping in mind not being mean to people, that sort of stuff. But I'd love to have people be as engaged as possible, asking questions, answering each other's questions, giving me suggestions for things. Happy to have it. I do start the live stream in the 10 to 15 minutes early range, just so you get the alert, and then you can get your things together so that you can be comfortable when we're doing this. For some of you, I know that you put this on while you're sewing and pay very little attention to me, and that's fine. I know some of you just have me on as background noise and you know, occasionally look up if something, you know, tweaks your ear. That's fine. And some of you sit and watch the whole thing. Crazy as that may be some days. So I hope that it's going well, and that you use this live stream as some way to relax. Our quilt this year is not a singular quilt. I do try to have something for you, but this year we're worrying about your UFOs, how to put them together, what to do with them. I put a whole 4 panels of UFOs up on my wall. Not UFOs, I'm sorry, not UFOs, orphan blocks. I put up a whole bunch of orphan blocks, and I gave you some ideas as to what to do with them. But in and amongst the wedding quilt, like when I'm doing the embroidery, there'll be less to show you. So I'll be working on some of those projects that have come out of the orphan bin. And some of the ones that I have are actually another couple ladies' orphans from when they quilted and they no longer do. So I still have a lot of their stuff to go through, and I'm sure I'm going to find more. So what I'd like to do is make sure I have them all so that I don't find 2 more blocks later that could have gone into this quilt that would have made it, you know, a larger size or the right size or something. I want to make sure I have them all together, so that it's complete and I know what I've got. However, I am going to start on some now. So there are some where I know I'm going to be putting sashing around all the blocks. So I'll get the sashing on, and then I'll stop and see, do any more of those pop up? And if they don't, then those blocks will be ready to go. So that's kind of where that stands at this moment. Other than that, I hope that you have a wonderful 2 weeks. I will see you here 2 weeks from today. And like I said, I'm hoping to have the pattern up on the wall for you to see. I don't know that I'll have started getting the houses ready, other than having them laid out in terms of where houses are going to be, not the specific houses. But once I have them placed, then I'll be able to put the specific houses in place and date them. And then I can go ahead and once I cut that chunk apart, I'll be able to go ahead and start the actual sewing. So even though the pattern will hopefully be up in 2 weeks, I'm not going to start putting the actual houses into their proper positioning until after that. Probably another 2 weeks to a month after that, just with what's going on here. So just to kind of give you an idea. Thank you so much for coming. I do try to respect your time, so I try to start the actual live stream right on time and end right on time. So I hope you all have a wonderful couple of weeks, and I'll see you then. All right? Bye-bye.